Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Watertown Ford's Charter Chat. My name is Emily Damon, and I'm the chair of the steering committee for Watertown Ford. Watertown Ford is a community initiative that seeks to expand the number of voices in the charter review process through a series of events designed to educate, empower, and engage residents. Our charter chats are an opportunity for you to share your views and ideas about the charter review process. We hope that through events like this, community members can get connected with others interested in town government and become more informed about the charter review process. Additionally, we want to see empowered community members asking questions, raising concerns, and offering comments about the charter review. I want to thank everyone so much for your feedback from the last charter chat. We, as always, try to incorporate feedback into the next week's event. And so we have taken ideas and suggestions and continually seek to improve our charter chats. Today's meeting is being recorded, so we will provide a recording of this for those who are not able to attend today and who can listen in later. So next I'll be passing it off to Larry, who will go over today's agenda and talk through some items for the meeting. Larry?
Okay, thank you, Emily. So let's look at the agenda slide. We're going to briefly go over a couple meeting guidelines. You'll have a chance to see who's here. Okay, it just disappeared on me. The slide, there we go. Now it's back. We're going to give everybody an opportunity to share observations about the recent Charter Review Committee meeting and ask some questions. We're going to do that a little differently this time. I'll get into that in a couple minutes. Our third section we're calling Good Trouble after John Lewis. We want to engage everybody in talking about the changes that are possible in the charter and generate some concrete ideas about values and how to communicate those values to the Charter Review Committee. We got some good feedback from everybody at our recent all-team meeting about moving from all the good discussions we've been having into some more focused actions. We want to provide an opportunity for that. And as we've done before, we'll take a few minutes at the end for closing thoughts and ideas about where we go next. So hang in there, and now let's spend a few minutes on how we're going to conduct ourselves today, and then we'll get into it. So again, as I said at the last All Watertown Forward meeting, we wanted to shift the focus towards action, and that's what we're planning on doing today. We're going to be in large group discussions some of the time as we start, and then we're actually going to break into smaller groups for some small group discussions where people can share a little more with each other and direct themselves towards some potential action. We'd like to follow the basic Zoom guidelines that we've been using, which is to raise your hand to be recognized and to mute yourself if you're not speaking so that we don't hear the dogs barking in the background or the phones ringing. We will also continue, as we've done in previous chats, to monitor our own chat here, and we'll attempt to bring up some common themes that are showing up in the chat and respond to those. But again, because we're encouraging dialogue and discussion, we'd like you to use that option as much as possible, but certainly the chat is available for you. Emily, did I miss anything in going through the agenda and the setup?
Nope, I think you covered it. Thanks.
Okay. So as you probably know, if you click on participants, you'll get to see who's here. And when it's time to raise your hand, you can go into the participants function and use that. If some of you may have a newer version of Zoom, where you can go into reactions, and there's a raised hand function there as well. If you are on the phone and you have some more limited access to our discussion today, please make sure we know who you are when you speak. Okay, so I think with that we can turn to the update slide for the Charter Review Committee. So we're going to do this a little differently this time. We've relied on Councillor Feltner and Councillor Palumba to give us an update in the past. And based on some feedback we got, we're going to rely on them to add some things as they may want to. But we're actually going to, all of us together are going to do an update on the Charter Review Committee. So many of you probably attended or you got to watch it on cable TV afterwards. So I'm just going to share a couple things that we think came up in the meeting, and then we're going to open it up for your observations and comments. So the Collins Center collected some feedback from CRC attendees in previous meetings where there were panels of legislators coming from different communities. The committee members themselves then shared their own thoughts and observations and feelings about what came up from those discussions. That was very rich. We observed an open discussion about values and the vision of Watertown. Do we have a vision? How clear is it? Where is it? How accessible is it to people? Does it align with what's important to us today and going forward? How well is it, if there is one, that people understand? How well is it being used as a guide for future actions? Some discussion about development. We know it's happening, it's inevitable. What are some of the guiding principles that are in place? How clearly are they being followed as growth takes place around the city? Is it in service of people's preferences for Watertown, the kind of community we would like to be? Something we've talked about in the past, there is a preamble subcommittee that has been formed, and Lisa and Tony and Bill Oates are on that. So more to come. That's a place where you may know that a community's values are established and put out for everyone to see.
I think so, yeah.
Some additional discussion about mayor manager. Is this the right conversation to have at this time? Are there other things that need to be discussed prior to that? Around vision and values, or is mayor manager the key next step for that group to talk about? And there was a communication subcommittee report which generated some interesting dialogue and interaction there at the end of the meeting. So those are just some of our take on some of the highlights from the meeting. We'd like you to now just reflect for yourself on an observation that you have or a thought that you have about a topic that was covered. And what we'd like to do is, with a raised hand function, I'll call on people. We'd invite you to offer a comment or an observation. Keep it to about a minute or less so that other voices can be heard. I will have the task of giving you an alert if your time is near up so that you can finish your thought, finish your sentence, and we'll go on to the next person. Once we've heard for 10 minutes or so from those of you who want to offer an observation or comment about the Charter Review Committee meeting, we're then going to open it up for another 10 minutes or so for questions any of you may have about something that someone said on our call here today, or something that came up during the meeting. You have a question that somebody else in our group right here can answer or respond to. We may be turning to Tony and Lisa at that point for some of their perspectives as members of the Charter Review Committee, or anybody else who's on the committee who is attending with us today. So with that, just be thinking about a question that you have. I'm sorry, first an observation or a comment, and we'll open it up for some discussion. And I see that Dan, you have a hand up, something you'd like to offer. So why don't you go ahead? And you'll have to unmute yourself, Dan, make sure that we can hear you.
Perfect. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, everyone. I guess so I wasn't watching live. I watched it after the fact. And the main observations that I took were that it was sort of a microcosm of everything that kind of has been, in my opinion, going wrong with the town, all kind of baked into a 2-hour show, I guess. One of the things that really stood out was the long discussion about vision and whether we have one or whether there's a lack of vision. In my opinion, there is a lack of vision. And my main takeaway was that there were a couple counselors that went on for quite a bit talking about how we do have a vision, how there's hundreds of pages on the website. What strikes me is that if there was a vision, they would have been able to state what the vision was in a minute or two, like elevator type of pitch. I think that is kind of the main takeaway that I got, is that there clearly isn't, or else it would have been explained. And within that vision, there can be things that we disagree on in terms of the path to get there. But I think there is no clear direction. I think the comprehensive plan has been pointed as a place to go for that. But again, when I look at that vision statement page there, it's just like a list of 10 things that we would like to achieve. It's like a list of goals and not an actual overarching vision for the town. So there was that. Second, I think we do need to have the conversation about values. I think it should have started at the beginning. It's kind of been hit or miss, I feel like, during the meeting so far. And because of that, I feel like it leads to making the mayor manager decision necessary, because if we're not going to be able to decide how to improve the government that we have currently, then the only other option I see is that we have to change the type of government. And then I want to give a shout out to Marcia for all the work she's been doing. I know it got a little testy at the end, so I just wanted to throw my support behind her as well.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for your comments. Let's see, Deb, go ahead. And Dan, you're great. You can put your hand down. Okay, Deb?
Hi. Well, talking about microcosms, I thought the concerns that Marcia Ciro brought up and the reaction was a microcosm of what is wrong with how town government functions. There's this complete isolation between the town administration and what it does and the town council. The town council president himself cannot even get a change to a website. And I think this dysfunction is very deep-seated. And part of it comes from this idea that the town government is the professionals and the town council is just, the politicians, and you need to keep them separate.
Okay, thank you, Deb. And Ilana, looks like your hand is up, so why don't you go next? You may need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Are you still there, Ilana? Can you unmute?
Okay, I'm
There
sorry
you go.
about that.
Okay.
My mistake. I think the last two speakers are right. The last meeting was a perfect example of lots of things that are wrong. I came out of it very riled up and annoyed at the whole situation. I think there's a lot of defensiveness by the people, the town councilors, the current town councilors, because they feel like it seemed like anytime people talked about change, they got very defensive instead of constructively looking at what's going on and what we might need to change, number one. 1A, that's a big problem in terms of improving things the way it's currently constructed, because the current town councilors make up a majority of what's on the Charter Review Commission. So if they're all going to be defensive, I don't know how we get by that number or whatever. Another thing I was thinking of is that under the current situation, yes, this last person was saying there's sort of this idea of the professionals versus the politicians versus, I don't know what you want to refer to, the riffraff, the voters. And I feel like I start to feel very demeaned by that, by the people in town hall, and sometimes by the elected people, and I don't appreciate that at all. Like, it's a need to know basis. We'll tell you what we think we're going to tell you. Another thing is, I think we also, besides the town manager mayor issue, and I don't know, maybe we have to settle that first, but maybe we should also be looking at the makeup of the town council, which is now 4 district and 4 at large. Maybe we could change the ratio of district and at large councilors and how large and the districts are. Maybe, maybe they should be 2 precincts instead of 3. If you look at the at-large counselors, all 4 of them come from the same part of town. Now, I don't think that's a good representation and is helping the city as well. That's another thing. I'm going to try to keep referring to this as a city. We are not a town. We have outgrown being a town. Our budget is way beyond a town. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of the people around here parochially still think of this as a town. I have some other things, but I'll let other people talk. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Thanks, Ilana.
You're welcome.
I don't see other hands up at the moment, so just reflect here for a moment for yourself, and we'd invite you to add any observations or comments at this time that you'd like to say, either in response to what you heard or something different. Anybody else want to offer something? Merle, go ahead. Just
Thank you. I want to speak to the dynamic of control. Since the last dispute came around whether Mark Sideris was controlling everything. And what I saw is that the system works such that the town council president controls whoever speaks. And there's not back and forth, there's just a speaker after speaker after speaker. There are very few inquiries where people find out what others are thinking. And one of the things that really struck me was they had this rather personal dispute about who was in control. And after it was over, President Sideris took control of the meeting by changing the topic. And it was a demonstration of taking control. But I think there's not an awareness of how much control the president has. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So it looks like, Ilana, you want to come back in and offer another comment, and then we'll maybe take yours and one more if there is one, and then we're going to shift the focus to some questions. So go ahead. Or is it that you're just, you want to say some more as opposed to just didn't put your hand down?
Yeah, no, I
Right.
wanted to follow up on what Merle said. I think that she honed in correctly on that issue about control. And I think Mark Sideris, while he works very hard and is on a whole lot of the town committees, the school committee, school building committee, charter review commission, besides being town council president. So I know he works very hard, but I think he has a conflict of interest because he's making the agendas and running these charter review committee meetings. And yet, excuse me, I'm looking at notes I have here. He's making the agendas and running these meetings and deciding who to call on for how long. And yet the conversation, the topics being discussed are often about the form of government, which is going to affect whether or not he can continue holding the seat he's in. Yeah. So it seems to me that's a clear conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that
comment.
Okay, at this point, I don't see other hands up. So let's just shift the focus. And we do have several members of the Charter Review Committee here, and many of you are familiar with what's going on there. So if you have a question with something you'd just like to hear more about or don't quite understand fully, or something that somebody said or something that went on at the Charter Review Committee meeting, this is a chance for you to kind of lead with inquiry. Somebody just mentioned, I think, Ilana, that we could use a little more inquiry. So this is our time to do that as well. So just put your hand up again if there's something you'd like to follow up on or you have a question about, and we'll see who would be in a good position to respond to you. And I see a prompt in the chat from okay, we've got, let's see, Jackie, you have your hand up. So why don't you go ahead and ask your question and we'll see who would be available to respond to it. Go ahead.
So I have a question about being involved on the subcommittees of the Charter Review Committee. And for example, I've been interested in quite a while, for quite a while in being, working with people about a flyer that would go out to residents and, you know, a broad kind of sweep. And I'm understanding from the one meeting that I was, that I watched, that a flyer is being worked on. And I just wondered, like, is the public allowed to be part of that? Like, how much are those subcommittees,
Okay.
kind of, yeah, include
Yeah, your
public?
question is, are they open to participation by members of the public in addition to the people who are on the Charter Review Committee itself?
Yes.
Okay. Is there somebody, maybe Tony, Lisa, your hand is up. Go ahead. Do you want to respond to that?
Sure. What I would say is that you are allowed to participate, but not as a voting member. So the public's allowed to participate any town meeting, but including the subcommittee meetings. Now, that's not to say that the subcommittee members, it's not to say that it's just one way. It tends to be up to the chair of any committee in general deciding what level of public engagement, if it's one way or two way. And so that's how I see it. I don't know if Tony, I mean, President Sedaris did say, as far as appointing anyone officially to a subcommittee, it would not be a member of the public. It would come from the existing Charter Review Committee members.
Thanks, Lisa. Tony, I think you're the chair of the Preamble Committee. Is that correct? Or one of it? So maybe you could speak to how the public could get involved in subcommittee work.
Yeah, we haven't come up with, Lisa and Bill Oates, who's the other member, the three of us haven't come up with a meeting time yet for that meeting. But once we do come up with a time that we can all meet, that will be put on the agenda, I mean, on the website, and it will be sent out to people who are Notify Me, and people can participate in it. And once we get a sense of how to proceed, I'm sure we could try to accommodate more than just the three of us, see if we can accommodate other people who are interested in working on the committee. So
your recommendation would be get on Notify Me, so if interested, so that you'd get a prompt, an email, find out when the next committee meeting is, and then anybody interested should get in touch with the members of the committee or the chair of the committee and figure out how they can participate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Jackie, does that help with your question?
I think so. We'll see.
Okay. I see we have a few minutes left, about 5 minutes, and I see a couple other hands up. So we've got Marcia and then Nancy. So Marcia, what's your question?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to respond since
okay, please do.
We have set a regular time for meeting now. So we are going to be meeting every 2 weeks on Thursdays at 6 o'clock. And our first regular meeting will be this Thursday, the 11th at 6 o'clock, available on Zoom.
And Marcia, could you say who the we is, what the committee is you're referring to?
The subcommittee on communications. Myself, Leo Martin, John Gannon, and Ann Fitzpatrick are members of that committee.
Right.
And I'm hoping that this week we will be discussing the flyer. I'm hoping that we'll get a copy for that. I think John Gannon is working on that. So we will get that and be able to discuss it. So welcome anybody who wants to join in to that and work with us.
Great, thanks. Thank you for that, Marcia. So let's hear from Nancy and then Angela, and then we'll probably have to wrap it up and move to the next section of our meeting today. Nancy?
Hi, I was just going to ask the members of the committee, there was some discussion about whether there might be a longer term plan published for what the committee is going to take up when, because especially when the agenda comes out, 48 hours before the meeting. And, we did know that there were going to be the panel discussions, but at this point, we don't know going forward what the kind of what will get discussed when, and when there might be more opportunity for public participation, either during the meeting or at a separate event. It would be, I think, very sort of calming to us all and informative if we had, and I'm going to write to Mark directly and suggest this, some kind of longer term plan. And so my question is whether it's your sense that that would be possible for the committee to come up with, and make it a little easier to understand the process, and to organize ourselves around when we're going to comment on what.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Again, Tony, you got your hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think that Mark is getting that message. I said that during the last meeting, right before it got a little crazy. I had mentioned to him the potential of please giving us a little bit of notice at what topics specifically will be addressed, so that if we as committee members have suggested changes or additions, we could write them out and think them through, as well as the community. So I think he's hearing that. I just think that at this point, there's still a lot of confusion, not confusion, but unclarity about how to move this thing forward. And also how to address the fact that the public wants to be more involved. And I just don't think we have figured that out, whether we should have half the meeting be the committee, half the meeting be from those who are addressing it. I don't know, but there needs to be some reorganization of how the agenda is set. And I would just continue to, I want to quickly say that on the new website, there's a comment section on the Watertown CRC webpage. There's a comment section. Please use it. If you have a comment, please use it. So far, I was at a meeting Friday night and there had only been one comment. So please get your comments in there. If you say, well, I think half the meeting should be this and half the meeting that, or I want at least 2 weeks notice about when a topic is going to be discussed, and put those comments in. They're very important. And also just quickly, there's a poll on that on the new CRC, on the CRC's webpage. Both the poll and the comment section are the result of the work of the outreach committee, subcommittee.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Tony. All right, let's take our last question. Angela, go ahead.
Thank you. And what Tony you just offered is really helpful. I'm going to definitely make some comments. So I just wanted to observe that, I'm sure Mark Sedaris followed all state level guidelines and how the committee itself was formed, the CRC committee. But I'll just say visually, and as a new person on the block attending these, I was really struck that all the faces that I saw seemed to be white faces. There were only 4 women in a group of 16 total. So again, just that observation that, this process should really reflect our community racially, ethnically, socially, socioeconomically, and the committee does not appear to.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment, Angela. And we're going to now take all of this good information and some things that have been going back and forth in the chat and make our pivot or transition to the next topic, which we're calling Good Trouble, and turn it over to Tia.
Hi there. I'm practicing the unmute button. Nice to see you all. I think we've got a slide to put up right now, which is just a kind of a reference point. Where does the phrase good trouble come from? And the good, comes from John Lewis, Senator John Lewis, and it's, never ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. And that's a little bit what we're talking about today. I'm hearing, from the last Watertown Forward meeting, from the conversation today, people want to have their voices heard, which is great. And what we know is that the timeline and the mechanism for doing that is unclear. We've got great to hear that there's an ability to post comments on the website. I don't know if one of our moderators could quickly find that link and post it in the chat at another time, sometime during the meeting today, that might be helpful. So in addition to that, our goal today is to help us all find productive ways to have our ideas and voices be heard. And so what we're going to do is over the next 40 minutes or so, break into small groups for 20 minutes, and then come back together in a larger group for 20 minutes and kind of debrief what we talked about. And what we're going to do is that, and I think we should probably move to the next, that at the beginning of the charter process, a set of themes were identified, through the work of Watertown Forward, both on the commission, that has guided the conversation. And as you look at this chart, you see, kind of these 4 themes, of the top of it, transparency, disclosure, evaluation is one, communication and responsiveness is another, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a third, and then budget and fiscal responsibility. Over a couple of meetings with the CRC, we heard representatives from other governments, counselors, mayors, managers, talk about their town government, and they often frame their remarks along these themes. Down the left-hand side, we see kind of channels or actors in government that could deliver on these themes. And we see the executive branch, the CEO, that could be a manager or a mayor, the legislative branch, the council as a group or individual councilors, committees and commissions. We have a very rich network of committees and commissions that help deliver the work of the town. And then the town administration and departments, the institutions of our town, the police department, the library, the schools. This chart is going to be our guide in our breakout groups. And the question that we'll have a facilitator in each group. There'll be three groups. And they will kind of get the conversation started. So what we want people to do is think about, and in the chat, I believe we are posting a link to this chart where you can kind of this can guide you. And I encourage you to open it up on your computers because I'm going to ask to move to the next slide, which is kind of these questions in terms of guiding our brainstorm. And it's, pretend that ET comes to town and he, she, it lands and looks around and sees what we're doing. And what would ET determine our values are, if they saw how we're behaving? So they're looking at our town government, our representatives, our committees and commissions, and our departments. What are they doing today? And what could they be doing differently tomorrow that would be demonstrating that we are transparent, that we have open communication, that we are working with diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we are fiscally responsible. And then that moves to the next question of what could the charter include that will help hold town government representatives, committees, commissions, departments accountable to these themes. So that's the broad framework, and it all rolls up to accountability. How are we going to hold our representatives and ourselves accountable to delivering a town government and in this city in a way that demonstrates the themes that we've identified? So at this point, I think Emily is going to break us out into subgroups, and you will find in the chat the link to the accountability channel. I've got a group, Larry's got a group, and Janice and Marcy have a group. So Emily, do your magic, and I'll see you all in 20 minutes.
Great. You should be getting a request to join a breakout room. And if you are still stuck here with me in the main room, I'll send you to a breakout room once we get everyone in. So see you in 20.
Are we all
Hey, we're
back?
almost ready for our 400th anniversary, Tia.
Okay.
Yeah. And Tia, you didn't tell us how long you've been in Watertown.
I think I've been in Watertown around 33 years.
Yeah, she
Newcomer.
said 30.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think our group is back. So are all the groups
We're
back
all
now?
back. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. We had I was in, I don't know which group I was in, group 2 maybe. So I'm assuming since I was in charge and I didn't notice the number of my group, that perhaps this went by the wayside for everybody else.
No,
So,
we have a spokesperson.
okay, yeah, if the spokespersons could just raise their hands, that might be helpful to me. Okay, I've got Lisa from our group. Dan
from our group.
Dan.
And Alana from our group.
Awesome, great. I am going to start with ours. And so the way we're going to do this is that what I'm going to ask is that if, again, lightning round, quickly in a minute, list kind of 3 key ideas that came out of your group. I know,
Okay.
yeah, I know. Speak fast, right? Lightning round. And then we're going to kind of get through that, and then we'll try at the end of that, try to open it up for some comment and some back and forth. So, but I want to publish out what some of the great ideas were. And if we're finding that, if we'll start there. We'll just let it go from there. We've got this for like 20 minutes. So it's 4 o'clock now. We'll take this to 4:20. So Lisa, we'll go Lisa, Dan, and Alana. And that'll be our order. And I'll try to move it along. And so I think that sounds, and we'll follow kind of, Zoom rules of order, mute if you're not talking, raise your hand if you wanna. So we'll go from there. Lisa?
Oh, sorry, I was already not muted. So I was in a wonderful breakout room of about 200 years of experience, we decided. And
well over 300.
Oh, thank you, Louise. Thanks for counting. We're almost ready for 400th anniversary. So I have about 1 minute. I'm going to go over. We had 5 really clear points that were made. Accountability, coming from the how we review the town manager, and including on what we wanted done with specific goals and regular requirements. There's too much emphasis on the financial side right now. 2 was diversity, equity, and inclusion. In particular, with the police department, there's a strong interest in forming a community advisory board. So all the issues are wrapped around that, even though a lot of good work is being done with the school. Another part of that would be 3, Human Rights Commission, because if we had a Human Rights Commission, it wouldn't just be about perhaps police department, but schools or any other department where people can come together and talk about all these issues and everyone's kind of on the same page, a little bit like what Belmont does. They have a Human Rights Commission. 4 is more disclosure about potential conflicts of interest, whether it's how the boards are formed or who sits on the board. And there were some questions about hiring practice, but there seems to be, because of some of the arrangements of powers, that by the nature of that arrangement, it tends to shut down public engagement. Some issues can't be brought up in council because people say, well, there's no way it's going to pass, and so it dies in a hole. And lastly, talk about communication and just in general in the town, whether it's from DPW or construction projects, or there's a vaccination clinic. Could I please find out, more than 24 hours ahead, so all the appointments aren't gone by the time I even hear about it. And that's it.
That sounds great. Thank you, Lisa. We'll move on. You hit your mark. You're very fast, very efficient. I think Dan was our next reporter out.
Awesome. I'll try to be just as efficient. So we broke it down into talking first about the good things and then the bad things. For the good things, we mentioned that adding the CIO for communication and potentially upgrading what the website looks like, because I think we don't need to even get into that, how bad it is. And then mentioning how bringing in new people, and then obviously the budget, which is clearly the number one priority and at times the only priority in town, is the finances. And then we talked about a couple other things, but they all didn't seem to fall into one of the categories. So we mentioned like the library and the cultural arts as like the good things in town. As for things for room for improvement, we spent a lot of time talking about the inability to communicate directly to CIO or to other people in town, the sort of disconnect in terms of, for instance, a poll survey asking if we want like a press release or a news guide to be added, when the real concern is being able to address concerns like one-on-one or with the town council instead of just having like somebody else regurgitate information. And then also about the weakness of the town council, its inability to sort of investigate legitimate complaints that seem to be going on within town departments and other areas of the town, how they have little to no influence on things that go on. One thing that was mentioned was how, for instance, in transparency, it was supposedly the number one issue in the budget last year, and the idea was, I guess, to create a position specifically for that, and the town manager said, no, we won't do it, and that's it. It just kind of ended there. So I don't know, it kind of showed that the inability for the town council president and the town council itself to sort of navigate through that, through those impasses, and kind of mentioned how it seems like it's just in essence like a weak mayor, the town council president. I think I got everything. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. It sounds like you had a good conversation. Alana?
Okay, I've got 7 bullet points here. They don't precisely fit into the 16 squares at all. First, we said we need to have standards or expectations for when any public officials from any of the branches will answer inquiries from the public. Another, whether it's a certain time limit, whatever. Sometimes inquiries go totally unanswered. Secondly, we need to have more public input into the budget process. Well, more public input, whether it's more forums, and also more of the counselors need to be involved. Probably related to that, more transparency and inclusivity around the evaluation of the town manager's performance and renewal of their contract. Right now, so much of it focuses on their fiscal performance, but other issues in their performance and just how it's done, and that be more transparent and inclusive. Excuse me, repetition there. We should have a diversity officer. We did not discuss where in the org chart to put that, but somewhere there should be a diversity officer. Next item, that several people felt there was just too much authority put into the town council president and the town manager, that it needs to be spread out more somehow. Another thing is that climate change and the issue of land and stolen land should be somewhere included in the preamble or the vision mission statement. And also that we should keep the process and for building the new high school, which is going to be a huge project in the city, and the money and everything and all the choices about that, we should keep that in mind when we're addressing all of these other things.
Great. You guys are incredibly efficient, and it sounds like in all of these groups there's some themes that overlapped in terms of transparency, DEI. We've got a lot of information out on the table, so I want to open it up to the group and see if there's any other comments or thoughts on the ideas that have been offered, and how, so because the next piece of this is to think about, in your groups, you've come up with these ideas and with specific, challenges that to be resolved, and specific ideas that could be put into the charter. And then, the next question will be then, how are you going to get your voices heard? So of these, I'll just open it up to observations and comments. You know, what do you think about what's been said?
Tia, you want to go by raised hands or just?
Yeah,
with the
sorry,
mic?
I was monitoring the chat. Yeah, Janice has got her hand up.
Hi, speaking from my own perspective, not Watertown Forwards, but I feel really charged by this exercise because I feel like I want to serve what we just said on a platter to the CRC and say, here's what you need to change. So I'm really anxious to get some concrete language down, and then also have some support in how we hand it to them in a way that's helpful and observes any process that we need to follow in terms of proposing something. So I'm curious about that piece.
Rita? And then Ernesta. Got to come off mute. There you go, Rita. Go.
So my thing always comes down to the form of government. I keep on getting the impression that we need to change it in order to shake it up. Because if we leave it as it is in place, the same people will get voted in and the power structure remains no matter, because whatever we put in the charter, they'll work their way around it. And I just get this inkling that we need to either strip somebody of power or give somebody else more power somehow. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Ernesta?
Actually, Mark. It's gonna be Mark, actually.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. I heard a common theme among all the groups, and that was to hold the executive branch more accountable to a series of performance targets and goals, and not just financial issues. And I thought that I heard that from the report back from all three of the subgroups. And so I think that's very much of a common theme. I'm not sure how you stick that into a charter, however. Do you stick a clause in that the executive branch must have performance targets set annually and then to be reviewed by the counselor? I don't know.
Okay, so more accountability. Thank you, Mark. Louise, and then Ilana. And if you're done, Mark, can you bring your hand down?
So
thank you.
So like Janice, I immediately started thinking about how useful all of this is, this exercise, and what is emerging from it, and that there must be a way to hand it, as she said, on a silver platter to the Charter Review Committee. And I think that the form that Tony has reported to us, I began to fill it out about some of the initiatives we want to see around police reform. I think that we ought to translate what we've come up with today into some kind of either one long document or maybe several pieces that speak to different issues, and have them written up on these comment forms, and then really push for who is looking at these and how are they going to take them up within their process. This is really us speaking to them in a way that they have set up in this, with this form, this comment form. Let us start using it, I think, but let us write these really well thought out pieces about what we want to see change. And just the final thing I want to say, because people have alluded to changing this or changing that, I think change in this town, and many of us, particularly in our group, have been here for 35, 40 years. I think change is going to be a very long-term process, and it's going to have to do partly with electing different officials.
Thank you, Louise. So the town, so that, again, that link to that town comment form. Ilana?
Yeah, I'll try to make three separate but quick items. Daniel mentioned that the town council president seems like they're kind of a weak mayor now. And I get that same feeling. And I think that Roberta was, when she was telling us last time how they envisioned it when they set this up, that person would be separate from the council because they would have a special relationship with the town manager, et cetera. Sounds like they meant it to be partly a mayor, but not quite. But I wonder, given the size of the budget and the size of this city now, how we can expect somebody to fulfill that vision and do that job the way we would hope and the way they originally hoped it to be if they're only working part-time. So again, trying not to criticize the person doing it necessarily, but maybe that's something in favor of a mayor, that the person, if we envision it that way, maybe we really ought to admit that we need a full-time person doing that, number one. Number two, I'd like to see us look at the makeup of the town council as well as all these other things we mentioned, as I said before. Number three, I'm concerned that this process of the whole charter review, whether it's the, all of this huge, bigger process that we're all working on, Watertown Forward and the commission and all of this, that we're maybe missing something in the timeline, because I believe that while this is all going on, heading towards a vote next November, if we can keep on schedule, I believe that the town manager's contract is being reconsidered right now. And if they renew the contract for, I don't know, a year, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, and yet the Charter Commission comes up with something that we vote on in November that changes their position, that's all kind of moot. So I think somewhere, while this whole process is going on in kind of this theoretical world, but the votes about their contract are going on in the real world, we better make those two things intersect.
Great. Thank you, Alana. And maybe that's something our town councilors can help us understand at another point. Nancy?
Yeah, I wanted to say three quick things. I definitely agree with what Louise said about using the comment section. It sounds to me like the group working on police reform issues, or the groups, are in a good position, having spent a lot of time together, to write something cohesive and specific. I think on other topics, we haven't had groups working together, and it would be great if people who are interested in particular topics could find a way to form and work together to put something up in that comments section. One question I have is, in addition to just the same people that they've already are hearing from about police or whatever, put comments in, it would be wonderful if the public could see the comments. And I don't know whether they're intending to make the comments continually available, but if they are, I would encourage us not only to work on a particular topic and get something, as Louise described, coherent and specific proposed, but also like what other people are proposing. So I ought to be on there. If I'm not working on diversity, I ought to be on there raising my hand to like what people do. And the final thing I was going to say is that I think in terms of functioning of the town council, I think we ought to think about how it's structured and elected. But I just think it's a no-brainer that they need more staff support. And we expect them to do way too much for way too little money as individuals, and in particular with way too little staff support. So I think that's kind of naive of us, and we ought to be trying to empower them to do their job better, because we put a lot of weight on them. That's it.
Great, thank you, Nancy. It's a great segue into our next piece. I see Deb's got her hand up though before I do that. Deb? And Nancy, if you could bring her hand down, that'd be great. So Deb, you're up next.
So maybe this leads into the next piece. I think it would be really helpful if Watertown Forward could kind of play a role in helping us individually sort of format a statement or a comment, so that we're sort of reinforcing each other's ideas. And I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but I feel like I keep picking up ideas as I hear other people talk. And that it would really be good to have, I don't know, maybe a whole list of ideas that we could all sort of, or statements that we could all draw from in those comments.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I
Lisa
could
and
just
Tony?
make one, just one suggestion. I hope that people will read the charter. I know it sounds really dry, but if you want to pick one section based on today's conversation, if you look at Article 3 and you're wondering what can be included about the town manager, it's all about the town manager, qualifications, duties, length of appointment, etc.
Great, thank you, Lisa. So Article 3 of the charter, midnight reading, town manager responsibilities. Tony.
Well, I just wanted to briefly suggest that in addition to all the written comments that each of the three groups, there are a lot of comments. I'm not able to keep up with what's going on in the chat, but I think some of the comments in the chat dovetail with some of the comments in the three groups. And it could be, as Deborah said, the beginning of a sort of a platform of ideas. That's what it is. It's a platform of ideas that could be sent to the committee. And there's others too. For example, I don't think there was anything in there on how to change the charter review selection. That it shouldn't be 12 council, 9 counselors, and maybe it should be every 5 years and not every 10 years. And so I think if we could begin to have a base that Deborah was talking about that takes what we said in these three working groups, but also what was in the charter chat. And my guess is that if you do another one of these next time, if you did the same idea with a different set of people, you'd even get more ideas. So it might be nice to repeat this at the next charter chat meeting, though you don't want to take too long before you get the initial list to the members. And I do want to again just appreciate Leo Martin and Marcia, the only two members I think of the communication committee who are here for getting that comment section up and running and getting that poll up and running.
Yes, yes.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Nicole?
I just wanted to say quickly, if we are going to make coherent thought through state, we shouldn't only do it on the website, although I love that that's there now, and I'm also grateful. We should make those public in the newspaper. We should post them other places. I think part of the issue is if it goes into the CRC, we have no idea what happens inside there. And because of the power dynamics, it feels like it's a bit of a black hole. I think it would engage a lot more people in this process, no matter what their perspectives are on the issues that are being raised. If we did things more in the open with more voice so that there's more noise, light, and air. We just need to get more people engaged.
Okay. I've got Sue Ellen and then Tiffany, I think you had your hand up at some point. No. Okay, great. Sue Ellen.
So I was just wondering all the talk, and we're grateful for Marcia and others who got the comment section up. But as far as I understood from Marcia last night, we still don't even know who's going to read the comments or is in charge of reading the comments, organizing them, communicating them to anyone else. Is there word on that, Tony?
Tony?
I only know this, and again, I don't want to steal Marcia or Leo's thunder, but we had a meeting Friday night with the CIO, as part of the Media and Public Outreach Committee, and we touched on this, and he's getting the comments right now. They're going to him. Now, I don't know, I asked in the sense, well, so periodically would we get them? You got to batch them up and send them out. But as I know it right now, they're going to the CIO.
Okay.
They will, I put in the chat, they will go to the whole committee eventually. They're waiting to collate. They're going to go in a spreadsheet. It'll be a living document. So they'll continue to fill in and it will go to the committee eventually.
Okay. We'll give Marcia our last comment. Marcia?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I'm glad, I know Lisa, you had written me and said that you had this meeting and it's really good, but all of the stuff that you talked about has not been relayed to us as the subcommittee on communication. So we need to meet on Thursday and I'd love to communicate with you guys about what you talked about so we can help hopefully expand.
Great.
Just to clarify, just so people don't think, it was related to, in general, his goals for things like this, that improving the functionality of the town website. So anytime surveys or comments, things coming into a webmaster, it's all going to finally coordinate across the departments in the town behind the scenes. And again, the idea of living documents. So anybody looks it up, you know, it will stay updated as time goes on, instead of someone sending a spreadsheet here and it's version 5 there and it's version 2 there. I hope that makes sense for people. So we didn't meet specifically, of course, at all about Charter Review Committee or the subcommittee. It just came up in context. We were talking about improving the town council webpage. And as you know, as you might imagine, he has a lot on his plate, but it is a positive meeting, and we're all frustrated, but I just wanted to let you know that there's some light in the tunnel.
Great, thank you, Lisa. And Louise will be our last commenter. Louise?
Yes, having been someone who was proposing using that comment form, maybe that's not sufficient, because it sounds like it's eventually it will be somehow a living document. Well, the eventually, maybe after the CRC is finished with its work.
Oh,
So
I don't
maybe,
think so. No.
no? Okay,
No.
but maybe we need to also do something else. You know, maybe we need to form these working groups around these different issues, write up some kind of statement, either with specific ideas about changes in the charter or just generally what we would like to see happening. And then maybe we send copies of that to each and every member of the committee and say, this is what people are concerned about. We want you to attend to this issue. We send every issue to every CRC person.
That's awesome, Louise. And that is a great segue into our next slide, which is, we're hearing, you know, these are great ideas. And so on our next slide, when it comes up, we've got the contact information of all of the members of the council and the CRC, their emails and their phone numbers. So you've got a way to reach out to them. The other thing that we've heard today is that people want to work together in groups. And, I'm open, we're open to ideas on how you want to organize that. I mean, so I think we've got everybody's email address. We can, I'm open to ideas in terms of whether it's the topics or the ways to work together to create those formal groups so you can work together. I don't want to volunteer people's emails. So if there's suggestions, please put it in the chat. Or maybe contact Emily. I'm kind of making this up. Can the attendees of this meeting please get a copy of the chat? But here's this, and then I'm open to ideas on how the attendees can contact each other to organize together to send out their specific ideas, whether folks want to organize around transparency, communication, DEI. I wasn't hearing a whole lot on fiscal responsibility, gotta say that. But there's some good synergies here.
Could I just jump in really quickly to answer a question about the copy of the chat, which might help people communicate with each other because they can remember who was here.
Thank you.
You can save your own chat on the bottom. There should be 3 little dots you can click on and then save your chat. So you can go back and read what people said and have a way to maybe see someone's name and potentially try to contact them later. I don't have everyone's contact information who's here, so we can't necessarily, we might have a lot of people's information, but if we want to get people in groups together, but I don't necessarily have everyone's email that is here.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to note that Ann Fitzpatrick, her email address is missing the K on this CRC citizen members list.
Thank you. So that should be AFITZPARTICK right before the @ sign. Got it. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your great ideas. This has been a really exciting conversation. There's just been tremendous energy, and I think there's great ways for you guys to channel it into the next step and get information into the CRC. At this point, I'm going to turn this meeting back over to Emily. I think you have a poll you're going to post, and then you'll send us off for the evening, correct?
Yeah, so we have one poll really quickly to wrap up for tonight. So I'll launch that poll and read it out, but it says on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being don't do this again, and 5 being let's do this every meeting, every time. How would you evaluate the format of the small and large group discussion today? And if you have specific comments, please, put them in the chat and we'll make sure to read those. I'm going to give about 10 more seconds. All right. I'll share the poll in full transparency. So good to see that you all liked that most of you liked the way we did this with the breakout rooms and some more interactive discussion and dialogue. So thank you for your comment, your poll. We'll definitely use this for some future charter chats. And just have our ending slide up here. Thank you all so much for joining today. I personally enjoyed hearing everyone's comments and ideas. And we hope that you can join us in a few weeks on Sunday, February 21st for our next charter chat. We also encourage you, of course, to attend the next Charter Review Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 16th at 6 p.m. And if you have any questions or want to provide feedback from today's event, please email us at forwardwatertown@gmail.com. And you can also email us to subscribe to our mailing list. I also wanted to let everyone know that if you have not already read the most recent charter recap, that is now available on our website and has a lot of more detail about Tuesday's meeting. If you're interested in reading it, I put the link in the chat. And we also asked that if you have a friend or a neighbor who is not involved or aware of the Charter Review or Watertown Forward, feel free to invite them, and please invite them to our next charter chat. And we hope they have a great week and enjoy this beautiful snow.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Bye.